Grace pressed her forehead against the cold bathroom mirror, her hands gripping the white porcelain sink. Her reflection stared back at her, mascara smudged, eyes red from crying. Behind the locked door, she could still hear them laughing. She actually thought a manager would marry a toilet cleaner. The words cut deeper than any knife. She looked down at her worn cleaning gloves. 6 months of this. 6 months of pretending. 6 months of being invisible. But tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, the woman they called dirty would stand before the nation and expose the truth. Tomorrow, the cleaner they mocked would become the voice that shook an entire system. And tomorrow, the man who loved her despite it all would finally understand why she had to hide. Sometimes the greatest test of love is not what you do when the world celebrates you. It's what you do when the world spits on you. This is the story of Grace. And this is the story of a love that refused to bow to shame. Before we begin this journey, we have a goal to hit 1,000 subscribers before January 31st. If this story touches your heart, please hit that subscribe button right now. Help us reach our target. Thank you. Now, let's begin. 4:45 in the morning. Grace's alarm buzzed in her tiny room in Mushin. She didn't hit snooze. She never did. She sat up on her thin mattress, the springs creaking beneath her, and said a quiet prayer. Then she stood, dressed in her faded blue cleaning uniform, and stepped into the Lagos darkness. By 5:30, she was already inside Pinnacle Tower, Victoria Island. The building stood 22 floors high, all glass and steel. Grace took the service elevator to the 15th floor where Sterling Heights Corporation occupied an entire level of executive offices. Her job was simple. Scrub toilets. Mop floors. Empty trash. Stay invisible. "Good morning, Ma," she greeted Mama Saad, the security woman. "Grace, you too early. This work go kill you one day." Grace smiled softly. "Work is work, Ma. I thank God." She began her routine. By 7 o'clock, when the first executives arrived, she had already cleaned 3 bathrooms, mopped 2 hallways, and wiped down 12 desks. Toilet cleaner." Adi's voice cut through the morning silence. Grace looked up from where she was wiping a conference table. "Yes, Ma." Adiz, one of the executive secretaries, stood with her handbag dangling from her wrist, her face twisted in irritation. "The CEO's bathroom smells. Go and clean it again. Use better chemicals. It's embarrassing when clients come." "Yes, Ma. I will do it now." Adiz walked away without a thank you. She never said thank you. Grace returned to the CEO's private bathroom and scrubbed the toilet again, her knees pressing into the cold tile floor, her hands burning from the chemicals. She didn't complain. She couldn't. Not yet. Around 8:30, she heard voices coming from the break room. Chioma, Ngozi, and Blessing. 3 of the junior staff members. "Abeg, have you people seen that cleaner?" Chioma said loudly. "The one that always looks like she bathed with engine oil." Laughter erupted. "Her name is Grace," Ngozi added mockingly. "But there's nothing graceful about her. She smells like Isel toilet cleaner." "I heard she lives in Mushin," Blessing whispered dramatically. "You know that place where one room holds 12 people?" More laughter. Grace stood outside the break room, hidden behind a supply cart, her throat tightening. She forced herself to breathe slowly. "Don't cry, Grace. Don't give them that power." She turned and walked away quietly. But every evening after her 12-hour shift, Grace didn't go straight home. She went to the public library in Yaba. There, she sat for 3 hours, reading, researching, taking notes. She carried a small plastic folder with important documents she guarded carefully. Nobody knew what was inside. And nobody asked. Because to them, she was just a cleaner. What could a cleaner possibly have that mattered? Chidi Okafor was different from the others. At 32 years old, he was the regional operations manager at Sterling Heights Corporation. He had an MBA from Lagos Business School, drove a clean Toyota Camry, and had a future most men would envy. But Chidi had grown up differently. His mother had been a cleaner too. She worked in a hospital for 20 years, scrubbing floors so Chidi and his siblings could go to school. She died when he was 22, just before his graduation. He never forgot how people treated her. Like she didn't matter. So when he saw Grace every morning, quietly working, never complaining, always polite, something in him stirred. One Tuesday morning, Chidi was walking toward the conference room when he saw Grace struggling to lift a heavy trash bag filled with paper waste. "Wait, let me help," he said, stepping forward. Grace looked up, surprised. "Ah, no sir. I can manage." "I know you can," Chidi smiled. "But you don't have to." He lifted the bag easily and carried it to the disposal room. Grace followed, stunned. "Thank you, sir," she said quietly. "My name is Chidi." "What's yours?" "Grace." "Grace." He repeated it slowly. "That's a beautiful name." She blushed slightly and looked away. From that day on, something shifted. Chidi started noticing Grace everywhere. One day, he saw her reading a book during her lunch break, hidden behind the stairwell. Curiosity got the better of him. After she left, he walked over and picked up the book. Introduction to Organizational Psychology. He frowned. Why would a cleaner be reading this? The next day during lunch, he walked to the stairwell where Grace usually ate. She was there, sitting on the floor, eating rice and stew from a small cooler, her book open beside her. "Grace," he called softly. She jumped, nearly spilling her food. "Sir." "I'm sorry, I will move." "No, no," he said quickly. "Please, sit. I just wanted to talk." She sat back down, her heart pounding. Chidi sat across from her on the stairs. "You like to read?" Grace hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sir." "Chidi," he corrected gently. "Call me Chidi." "Yes, Chidi." He smiled. "What are you reading?" She showed him the book. He raised his eyebrows. "This is a university-level textbook." "I like to learn," she said quietly. "Are you in school?" Grace looked down. "I was. I'm hoping to go back." Chidi's respect for her doubled in that moment. "If you ever need help, with books, with school fees, anything, please let me know." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "Why are you being kind to me?" Chidi paused. "Because you remind me of my mother." Over the next few weeks, their bond deepened. Chidi started bringing her lunch, proper meals from the office cafeteria. "Chidi, you don't have to do this," Grace protested one afternoon as he handed her a plate of jollof rice and chicken. "I know I don't have to," he replied. "I want to. You work harder than anyone here. You deserve to eat well. But people will talk. Let them talk. I don't care." Grace looked at him carefully. "You should care. You have a reputation. You have a future. And you don't." Chidi asked, his voice gentle but firm. Grace couldn't answer that. They began talking during her breaks. She told him carefully about her dreams. He told her about his mother, his struggles, his hopes. One evening, after everyone had left, Chidi found Grace sitting alone in the dark office, staring out the window at the Lagos skyline. "Grace, what's wrong?" he asked. She turned to him, her eyes red. "Do you ever feel invisible?" Chidi's chest tightened. "Yes. I used to." "How did you stop feeling that way?" He walked closer. "Someone saw me. Really saw me." Their eyes locked. Grace, I see you. And in that moment, something undeniable passed between them. One Friday evening, as Grace prepared to leave, Chitty stopped her. Grace, can I take you to dinner? She froze. Dinner? Yes. Just as friends. I want to know you better. Grace's mind raced. This was dangerous. If she got too close, everything could fall apart. But when she looked into his eyes, she saw something she hadn't seen in months. Genuine care. Okay, she whispered. They went to a small bukka in Yaba. Nothing fancy. Just rice, stew, and conversation. As they ate, Chitty finally asked the question weighing on his heart. Grace, do you believe people can fall in love across different worlds? She looked at him carefully. What do you mean? I mean, if someone like me, with education, with a career, if I fell for someone the world considers beneath me, would that be foolish? Grace's breath caught. No. That would be brave. Chitty reached across the table and took her hand. Then I'm ready to be brave. And in that small bukka, under flickering fluorescent lights, two hearts made a choice. The whispers started on a Monday morning. Adiz was walking past the conference room when she saw Chitty and Grace talking by the window. She immediately walked to Ngozi's desk. Babe, come and see something, she whispered urgently. Ngozi followed her to the conference room window. They both peeked in. Jesus Christ, Ngozi gasped. Is that not Chitty and the toilet cleaner? I'm telling you. See how they're laughing. Something is going on. Ah, but Chitty is a manager. Oh. What is he doing with her? Adiz shook her head slowly. Unless she has jazzed him. That single sentence spread through the office like wildfire. By Wednesday, the entire 15th floor knew. At lunch, in the break room, the conversation was loud and venomous. I'm telling you, Chioma said, biting into her meat pie, that girl has done something to Chitty. There's no other explanation. Exactly, Blessing agreed. A whole regional manager, MBA holder, fine boy, and he's chasing after a cleaner. It must be juju. Adiz leaned in conspiratorially. I heard she brings him food every day. Ah. Ngozi clapped her hands. That's how they do it. They put jazz in the food. The women nodded knowingly. What they didn't know was that Chitty had been bringing Grace food. Not the other way around. But the truth didn't matter. By Friday, the rumor reached Mrs. Beatrice Okafor, Chitty's mother. Mrs. Okafor was a retired civil servant who lived in a comfortable three-bedroom flat in Suralere. She had high expectations for her son. When her friend, Mama Chinyere, called her with the gossip, Mrs. Okafor nearly fainted. Beatrice, they said your son is dating a cleaner. What? Mrs. Okafor screamed into the phone. Yes, oh. In his office. The girl that washes toilets. Mrs. Okafor dropped the phone and grabbed her car keys. That same Friday afternoon, around 3 o'clock, Mrs. Okafor stormed into Sterling Heights Corporation like a hurricane. She didn't stop at reception. She marched straight to the elevator. When she reached the 15th floor, she burst through the glass doors. Where is my son? She bellowed. The entire office froze. Chitty rushed out of the conference room. Mummy? What are you doing here? So it's true, she screamed, her voice echoing across the office. You are dating a cleaner. Every head turned. Grace, who had been mopping the far end of the office, felt her stomach drop. Mummy, please, not here, Chitty tried. Not here. Not here. Mrs. Okafor's eyes were wild. You have brought shame to this family. Where is she? Where is this witch? Chitty's face hardened. Mummy, stop. But Mrs. Okafor wasn't listening. Her eyes scanned the room. Then she saw Grace. standing near the supply closet, mop in hand, frozen in terror. You. Mrs. Okafor pointed a shaking finger. You are the one. The toilet cleaner. Grace couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Mrs. Okafor charged toward her, her heels clacking violently. What did you do to my son? What jazz did you use? Mummy, stop. Chitty grabbed his mother's arm, but she shook him off. She got right in Grace's face. Listen to me, you dirty girl. Leave my son alone. You are nothing. You will never be part of this family. Do you hear me? Never. Tears streamed down Grace's face. I'm sorry, Ma, she whispered. Sorry. Mrs. Okafor laughed bitterly. You should be. You should be ashamed. Mummy, enough. Chitty roared. The office went silent. Chitty stepped between Grace and his mother, his chest heaving. Enough. You will not speak to her like this. Mrs. Okafor staggered back, stunned. Chitty, are you defending her over me? Your own mother. I'm defending someone you're attacking for no reason. She is a cleaner. Mrs. Okafor shrieked. And she is a human being. Chitty shouted back. The office gasped. Mrs. Okafor's face crumpled. Then, dramatically, she pressed a hand to her chest and collapsed. Mummy. Chitty caught her just before she hit the ground. Somebody call an ambulance. Adiz screamed. Chaos erupted. In the confusion, Grace quietly slipped away. She grabbed her bag, left her mop behind, and walked out of the building. She didn't look back. That evening, Chitty sat beside his mother's hospital bed. The doctor said it was just stress and high blood pressure. Chitty, you want to kill me, Mrs. Okafor said weakly. That's what you want. Mummy, I don't want to kill you. I just want you to respect my choices. Respect? You want me to respect you ruining your life? Grace is not ruining my life. She is a cleaner. Mrs. Okafor screamed. I don't care. Chitty shouted back. Silence. Mrs. Okafor stared at her son. Then you have chosen. Her or me. Chitty stood up slowly. His voice was calm but final. I choose her. Mrs. Okafor gasped. Chitty walked out of the hospital room without looking back. The next morning, Grace's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Chitty's name flashed on the screen again and again. She didn't answer. She couldn't. She sat in her tiny room in Mushin, staring at the plastic folder she always carried. Inside was a letter. An acceptance letter. And research notes. 6 months of notes. Her phone rang again. This time, it was a different number. She answered hesitantly. Grace, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you. It was Professor Adewale, her supervisor. I'm sorry, Professor, I've just been. Never mind that. Listen. The university board wants to fast-track your defense. They've heard about your research approach, and they're very interested. They want you to present next week. And Grace, there's more. I submitted your preliminary findings to the International Journal of Workplace Ethics. They want to feature you. The media wants to cover it. This is big. Grace couldn't speak. Grace, are you ready? She closed her eyes. Was she ready? That evening, as rain poured down outside, someone knocked on her door. She opened it to find Chitty standing there, drenched, his shirt clinging to his chest. Grace, please. Talk to me. She opened the door wider, tears already falling. Chitty, you shouldn't be here. Why not? Because you're losing everything because of me. Your mother hates me. Your job is in danger. People think I've used juju on you. I don't care what people think, Chitty said firmly. But I care. Grace sobbed. I care that you're suffering because of me. Chitty stepped inside, closing the door behind him. He took her face in his hands. Grace, listen to me. I have lived my whole life trying to please people. My mother. My bosses. Society. And you know what? I was miserable. He wiped her tears. But then I met you. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. Free to be kind without apology. Free to love without shame. Free to choose someone because of who they are, not what they have. Grace shook her head. But Chitty, I'm just a... You are not just anything, he interrupted. You are brilliant. You are kind. You are worth everything. He knelt down, right there in her tiny room. Grace, I don't have a ring yet. I don't have my mother's blessing. I don't even know if I'll have a job next week. But I know one thing. He looked up at her, his eyes red with emotion. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me? Grace collapsed to her knees, sobbing. Yes. Yes, Chitty. Yes. They held each other on the floor of that small room, two souls who had found each other in the most unlikely place. At the office, the gossip continued to explode. Grace had stopped coming to work. Nobody knew where she was. The whispers grew louder. I heard his mother collapsed because of that cleaner. See what poverty does. She's destroying families. Chitty has lost his mind. Jazz is real. Even Mr. Adebayo, the CEO, called Chitty into his office. Chitty, I've heard rumors about you and one of our cleaners. Chitty's jaw clenched. Yes, sir. Grace and I are in a relationship. Mr. Adebayo sighed. Chitty, you're a good manager. But this is complicated. It's affecting office morale. People are talking. With respect, sir, my personal life is not their business. I understand. But perception matters. If this continues, I may have to ask you to transfer. Or ask her to resign. Chitty stood up. If you fire Grace, I'll resign. Mr. Adebayo blinked. Excuse me. You heard me, sir. I will not work for a company that punishes someone for being loved. He walked out. Days later, Mr. Adebayo received an official invitation. Sterling Heights Corporation was invited to a public thesis defense and press conference at the University of Ibadan. The topic was workplace discrimination. The research had been conducted at their building. That Thursday morning, he called an emergency meeting with the executive team. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Adebayo began, looking unusually serious, we've been invited to a very important event this afternoon. The University of Ibadan is hosting a public thesis defense. The topic is workplace discrimination. Adiz rolled her eyes. Sir, why do we need to attend an academic event? Mr. Adebayo's expression was unreadable. Because the researcher conducted her study here. In this building. For the past 6 months. The room went silent. What? Ngozi gasped. Yes. And the media will be there. International media. So we're going. All of us. This is mandatory. Chioma whispered to Blessing, who could it be? Nobody had any idea. If you're still watching at this point, drop a comment with, I'm still here. Let's see who's truly following this journey. That afternoon, the Grand Hall at the University of Ibadan was packed. Journalists from channels TV, Arise News, BBC Africa, and CNN Africa filled the front rows. University officials sat on stage. Corporate leaders from across Lagos were in attendance. And in the front row sat Chitty, his heart pounding. Professor Adewale had personally invited him. He told Chitty, there's someone you need to see. The Sterling Heights employees sat together in the middle rows, confused and uncomfortable. At exactly 3 o'clock, the lights dimmed. Professor Adewale stepped to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Today, we are honored to host the public defense of a PhD thesis that will challenge the way we think about dignity, work, and humanity in Nigerian corporate spaces. He paused for effect. The researcher went undercover for 6 months as a cleaner in a prestigious Lagos office building. She documented systemic discrimination, dehumanization, and class-based abuse. Her findings are groundbreaking. The Sterling Heights employees began to shift uncomfortably in their seats. Please welcome Dr. Grace Okonkwo. The room exploded into applause. And then she walked onto the stage. Not in a cleaning uniform. Not with a mop. But in a tailored navy blue suit, her hair styled beautifully, her head held high. Grace. The Sterling Heights employees gasped audibly. What? Adiz screamed, jumping to her feet. Jesus Christ. Ngozi covered her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. Chioma looked like she'd seen a ghost. No. No, no, no. Blessing started crying immediately. Chidi stood up slowly, his eyes filling with tears. Grace, he whispered, his voice breaking. Grace stepped to the microphone. Her voice was calm, clear, and powerful. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Grace Okonkwo. I hold a PhD in public health from this institution. For the past 6 months, I worked undercover as a cleaner at Sterling Heights Corporation. She clicked a remote. Behind her, a massive screen lit up with photos. Grace in her cleaning uniform, scrubbing toilets, mopping floors, emptying trash bins. I wanted to understand how we treat people we consider beneath us. How we dehumanize those we depend on. And what I found broke my heart. She clicked again. Audio recordings began to play. Clear. Unmistakable. She smells like Isel toilet cleaner. Toilet cleaner, come here. Unless she has jazzed him. All these poor beggars no go give you better future. The voices were crystal clear. The Sterling Heights employees recognized themselves instantly. Adiz began to cry, her mascara running down her face. Ngozi sank into her chair, her hands trembling. Chioma covered her face with both hands, sobbing. Blessing whispered, "Oh God. Oh God. What have we done?" Grace continued, her voice steady but filled with emotion. I was called dirty. Useless. A witch. I was told I didn't belong. That I was too poor, too low, to be loved. I was accused of using witchcraft to trap a good man. My existence was treated as an embarrassment. She paused, her voice trembling slightly. But one person saw me differently. She looked directly at Chidi. One person treated me with dignity when he had no reason to. One person brought me food when others mocked me for eating. One person asked about my dreams when others assumed I had none. One person loved me when the world told him I was worthless. Tears streamed down Chidi's face. And that person taught me that true wealth has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with character. The room erupted into thunderous applause. Grace pulled out a document from the podium. Her hands were shaking slightly, but her voice remained strong. This, she held up the paper, is my acceptance letter. I was accepted into this PhD program 3 years ago. I worked multiple jobs to fund my research. And when I needed to understand workplace discrimination from the inside, I took a job as a cleaner. She looked out at the audience. I scrubbed your toilets. I mopped your floors. I emptied your trash. And while I did, I listened. I watched. I documented. Because I wanted to prove something that many people refuse to believe. That we judge people not by their character, not by their intelligence, not by their potential, but by their job titles. By their clothes. By their perceived status. The silence in the hall was deafening. And I was right. The media cameras flashed continuously. After her defense, which she passed with highest distinction, Grace held a press conference. A journalist from Channels TV stood up. Dr. Okonkwo, how did it feel to be treated that way by people you worked alongside? Grace answered honestly. It was painful. Humiliating. There were nights I cried myself to sleep. But it was also necessary. Because now we have data. Now we have proof. And now, we can demand change. Another journalist from BBC Africa asked, what do you want companies to do differently? Treat every human being with dignity, Grace said firmly. Regardless of their job title. The person cleaning your toilet is someone's daughter. Someone's mother. Someone's dream. They have hopes. They have intelligence. They have worth. Treat them accordingly. And what about the man who loved you through all of this? A journalist from Arise News asked. The manager who defended you? Grace smiled, tears filling her eyes. He proved that real love sees the soul, not the status. He chose me when I had nothing to offer him but a mop and a dream. That's the kind of love that changes the world. The applause was deafening. After the conference, Grace walked off stage, her legs trembling. And there, waiting for her at the bottom of the stairs, was Chidi. He didn't say anything at first. He just stared at her, tears streaming down his face. You're a doctor, he finally whispered, half laughing, half crying. You're a doctor. I'm sorry I didn't tell you, Grace said, tears soaking her cheeks. Don't be sorry, Chidi said, his voice breaking. I fell in love with the woman scrubbing floors. Finding out she's brilliant just makes me love her more. He pulled her into his arms and held her like he'd never let go. I was so scared, Grace sobbed into his chest. Scared you'd feel betrayed. Scared you'd think I was using you for my research. Chidi pulled back and looked at her. Grace, you could have told me you were the president of Nigeria and it wouldn't change one thing. I didn't fall in love with your degree. I fell in love with your heart. They kissed. And the cameras captured it all. The fallout was immediate and brutal. By the next morning, Grace's story had gone viral across the continent. The hashtag #TheDirtyCleaner was trending #1 on Nigerian Twitter, and the story had been picked up by international news outlets. Nigerian PhD student exposes corporate classism in undercover study. The cleaner who changed a nation's conversation. From toilet scrubber to truth teller, one woman's courageous stand. Sterling Heights Corporation was in a full-blown PR nightmare. Protesters gathered outside the building with signs. Respect all workers. Dignity is not a privilege. We see you, Grace. Class SM kills. Mr. Adebayo called an emergency board meeting. The atmosphere was tense. This is a disaster, he said, pacing. Our reputation is destroyed. Our stock price is dropping. We're losing clients. It's not our reputation, Chidi said coldly from his seat. It's your culture. Mr. Adebayo stopped. What do you mean? You allowed this, Chidi said, standing up. His voice was controlled but filled with barely contained rage. You allowed people to treat Grace like trash. You allowed gossip. You allowed bullying. You created an environment where it was acceptable to mock someone for their job. And when I tried to defend her, you threatened my job. Mr. Adebayo looked down, ashamed. Chidi continued, his voice rising. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to publicly apologize to Dr. Okonkwo. You're going to implement mandatory anti-discrimination training for every single employee. You're going to increase wages for all cleaning and support staff. And you're going to create a zero-tolerance policy for workplace harassment. And if I don't? Mr. Adebayo asked quietly. Then I walk, Chidi said. And I take this story to every media outlet in Nigeria. I'll tell them how you threatened to fire me for defending a woman being abused in your building. How you prioritized office morale over human dignity. Mr. Adebayo was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Fine. I'll do it. Adiz, Ngozi, Chioma, and Blessing were called into HR that same afternoon. They sat in a row, their faces swollen from crying. The HR director, Mrs. Folake, played back their recorded insults. Each voice clear. Each word damning. These recordings are now part of a published academic study, Mrs. Folake said coldly. They will be studied in universities. They will be cited in papers. Your names are attached to this behavior forever. We're so sorry, Adiz whispered, her voice barely audible. Sorry isn't enough, Mrs. Folake replied. You are all being placed on immediate probation. You will undergo mandatory sensitivity training. You will issue public written apologies. And if there is one more incident of discrimination or harassment from any of you, you will be terminated immediately. No second chances. Do you understand? They nodded, unable to speak. As they left the office, Blessing turned to the others. We destroyed her. We tried to destroy her. And she was a doctor the whole time, Chioma whispered. A doctor. While we were calling her dirty. Ngozi started crying again. How do we come back from this? How do we ever look her in the face again? Adiz shook her head. We don't. We don't deserve to. But the biggest reckoning came at Mrs. Okafor's house. Grace and Chitty arrived together 3 days after the thesis defense. Mrs. Okafor opened the door. When she saw them, her face went pale. You, she whispered, staring at Grace. Yes, Ma. Me. Mrs. Okafor stared at Grace. No longer in a cleaning uniform, but in an elegant navy dress, standing tall, confident, unshaken. You have a PhD. Mrs. Okafor's voice cracked. Yes, Ma. And you were researching? Yes, Ma. Mrs. Okafor's eyes filled with tears. I called you dirty. I called you a witch. I said you were nothing. You did, Grace said, her voice soft but firm. Mrs. Okafor collapsed into a chair, her whole body shaking with sobs. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so ashamed. Chitty knelt beside his mother, taking her hand. Mummy, this is who I love. This is who I'm going to marry. And you need to accept it. Mrs. Okafor looked at Grace through her tears. Can you ever forgive me? Grace walked over slowly and knelt in front of her. Ma, I forgive you. But I need you to understand something. Mrs. Okafor nodded, wiping her eyes. Your son is a good man. He is good because you raised him to be kind. You taught him to respect people. You worked hard as a cleaner yourself so he could have a better life. You know what it's like to be looked down on. Mrs. Okafor gasped softly, remembering. But somewhere along the way, Grace continued gently, you forgot. You forgot what it felt like. And when you saw your son with someone who reminded you of your past, you rejected her. Not because of who I am, but because of what I represented. Mrs. Okafor broke down completely. You're right. You're right. I was ashamed of my past. And I took it out on you. I'm so sorry. Grace took her hands. Kindness doesn't stop at people who look like us or have what we have. Kindness is for everyone. Your son learned that from you. Now it's time to remember it yourself. Mrs. Okafor pulled Grace into a tight hug, crying on her shoulder. Welcome to the family, my daughter. Welcome. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm grateful for it. 3 months later, the wedding took place at the Civic Center, Victoria Island. The hall was decorated with white and gold, flowers cascading from every corner. But this wasn't just any wedding. Dignitaries attended. University professors. Corporate leaders. Human rights activists. Journalists from across Africa. And in the front rows, specially reserved and honored, sat 50 cleaners from across Lagos. Grace had personally invited them. They wore their finest clothes, their faces beaming with pride. Grace walked down the aisle in a stunning white gown, custom designed, her father by her side. Chitty stood at the altar, tears already streaming down his face. When Grace reached him, he whispered, "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." She smiled. "I'm still the same girl who scrubbed your office toilet." He laughed through his tears. "And I'd marry you 1,000 times over." The pastor smiled warmly. "Do you, Chitty, take Grace to be your wife?" "I do." "And do you, Grace, take Chitty to be your husband?" "I do." "Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." They kissed, and the entire hall erupted. The cleaners in the front row stood and cheered the loudest. At the reception, Mrs. Okafor stood to give a speech. Her hands trembled as she held the microphone. "I want to say something," she began, her voice shaking. "I was wrong. I judged my daughter-in-law by her clothes, her job, her appearance. I saw someone cleaning toilets and decided she wasn't worthy of my son. And I almost destroyed my son's happiness. I almost destroyed the best thing that ever happened to him." She looked at Grace, tears flowing freely. "Grace, you are not just brilliant. You are brave. You showed this country, you showed me, that dignity is not given by titles or money or status. It is inherent. It lives in every human being. Thank you for loving my son. Thank you for forgiving me. Thank you for reminding me who I used to be." The crowd stood and applauded, many wiping away tears. As the night ended, Grace and Chitty stood on the balcony of the reception hall, looking out at the Lagos skyline, the city lights twinkling like stars. "So, Dr. Okonkwo Okafor," Chitty teased, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "What's next?" Grace smiled, leaning back into him. "I've been offered a position at the UN. They want me to lead a workplace dignity initiative across Africa." Chitty's eyes widened. "Grace, that's amazing. And," she added, turning to face him, "I want you to come with me. As my partner. In everything." He pulled her close. "I'd follow you anywhere. To the UN. To the moon. Anywhere." They kissed under the stars, two souls who had found each other in the most unlikely place, who had survived mockery and humiliation, who had chosen love when the world told them to choose status. And so, the woman they called dirty became the voice of the voiceless. The woman they mocked became a symbol of dignity. And the man who loved her when she had nothing inherited everything. Because true love sees beyond titles, beyond wealth, beyond status. True love sees the soul. Never judge a person by their job, their clothes, or their current situation. The cleaner you disrespect today may be the doctor who changes your life tomorrow. The person you mock may be the voice that transforms a nation. Treat every human being with dignity. Because greatness often hides in the most unexpected places. And the person scrubbing your floor may be the one who changes the world. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button right now. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Drop a comment below telling us what lesson you learned from Grace and Chitty's story. And subscribe to our channel. We're almost at our goal of 1,000 subscribers before January 31st. Help us reach it. Thank you for watching. Remember, dignity is not a privilege. It's a right. See you in the next story. Stay blessed.